Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. My name is Niels Tudor-Winter and I am the creator, editor and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. It is time for another episode in the timeline series. I have reached to the implementation section and have already shared with you all the guest episode with Georg Melzer-Venturi on the work package descriptions. We didn't manage to cover the remaining part of the implementation section 3, which mainly consists of a large handful of tables and diagrams. I have decided to make a solo episode on this, mainly because I have dealt with this many times myself, but also because it is pretty straightforward. The tables and diagrams are summing up on efforts, things to deliver to the Commission, timelines for the tasks and so on. In other words, this is where you give the evaluators and the EU Commission the overview of the hard facts of your organization. It can seem like a cacophony of templates and tables, and indeed it is good to have a cool head when you attack this part of the proposal, which is tricky because most of it you can't do before the very end of the proposal process, and in the very end few people have a calm head. In this episode I run through all the elements of the implementation section and give you all some tips, tricks and advice on how to deal with it. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today I am having a solo episode, and that's been a while. It has turned into a guest show, but anyways, there will come more solo episodes in the future, not only in the timeline series, but also in other areas of the EU funding area that I will dig into. I have experience for many different things, and some of them I will run solo. But it's just so nice to have guests around the show, so that's why I keep inviting nice people in. Today is a timeline series show. We have reached the implementation part, and some weeks ago I did the implementation section on work pack descriptions with Georg Melzer-Venturi from Austria. And what we didn't manage to cover there was all the tables and the rest of the implementation section. So I'm going to do that myself because it's not that complicated, and I've been doing this a lot throughout the year. So indeed, I will be able to give you enough information, generic information on how these things work. So we will just get right at it. But maybe I should just shortly introduce myself, because I actually never do that anymore. I'm Niels Tudor-Winter. I have been working with EU funding since 2008 in many different constellations. In my intro episode, the first one, I say a few words about it. Just for everybody to be on top of that, I have experience since 2008 working for the Danish government. I've been working for P&O as a private consultant, and I've been working in different regional offices and regional initiatives in Brussels, supporting stakeholders with accessing funding. So I've been sitting on facilitating governmental and private consultancy chairs, so to say, positions to support there. This means that I have quite a broad knowledge and experience about how the different areas of this EU funding area it works. A broad network, broad insight into what is important in the different corners in the research world, for SMEs, for industry, for innovation clusters, and so on and so forth. Now that's it. Let's just get at it. Today we will look at the implementation section in the proposal, and it's everything else but the work package descriptions that me and Georg we have already covered. And from just to have a fly in on that, you have an awful lot of tables and schemes. You have tables, you have figures and so on that you need to have here. So this is everything here in this section is related to how you are practically going to carry out your proposal. So you have the work package descriptions that we already covered, where you describe the tasks and the flow between them in detail. But you also have some other aspects that the commission would like to have. For instance, you have an overview of the timeline and a timeline of different tasks in the proposal. It's called a Gantt chart, and then you have the paired chart that is a visual illustration of the flow between the work packages. Get back to that. And then you have a lot of tables that collect or gathers the information that the commission thinks is important. For instance, the milestones and the deliverables that we talked about, me and Georg, but also a few others. For instance, critical risks and so on. So the whole idea of this is, of course, for the commission and the evaluators, especially the evaluators, to get a good overview of that everything is structured in a well-mannered way, and that you have the strong already now perception of how things are going to be carried out practically. How do you prepare yourself for this? So the thing is, many of these tables you can't finish before the very end of the proposal. You can start filling them in. For instance, you have, if we start with the Gantt table, which is the big overview, timeline overview of each task and each work package and each task under each work package with a timeline on which month is the start month and the end month. Many of these things are not established before the very end. Towards maybe I've been finishing Gantt on 1 day or 2 days before submission. It's not ideal, but as you sort of sense throughout the episodes, it's often the case that business and the exchange of information means that these things often are settled in the end, especially details like when exactly things start and end in the different parts of the project. It's details that are often related to each other. So when do this task finish and start? When do this? And if they correlate, if they interact with each other, then one needs to know what the other does before you can put it into the graphic of the Gantt. So it's these things are closely connected to the work package descriptions and the work that each partner and work package group is doing with developing the work there, description of that. The pair diagram is a little easier to deal with for the preparation. That's the work package visual overview, and this you can definitely. This is, if you sort of followed this timeline series, you know that this is something that I have been doing from an early stage as part of the idea development. So what I have done when I've been building up my proposals, I've been using it as a means of idea development in the creative process in the beginning. So I have the work package descriptions quite early on, and then you adapt them, of course, as the project is developing into its final stages, and you can adjust them. But I've been doing it in a PowerPoint, in the PowerPoint program, the software, making these blocks and bubbles and so on that illustrates the work packages and the flow with arrows and so on in between them. Some people work with other software, Canva, for instance, online tool for these things. But most important thing is that here it should be, for the majority of you sitting with this, you should already have it at a quite early stage, how this overview, what it looks like. For the tables that you have here, these are for instance, you have the list of deliverables and milestones, and these things come. I will get back to that when I start moving to. But everything here is related to collecting the information and pushing partners, as with many other things that we've been covering and I've been covering together with guests. So the preparation here, how to prepare for it? Well, if you have a good structure and a good project coordination and closely holding a short leash on your partners, then it's good. For instance, as you might remember, Georg mentioned that he always makes sure that he has one contact from each partner where he can always call, even if nobody, like an emergency number. So if you have this kind of structure, you will make sure that you will always be able to get a flow of information. That's the preparation. It's very closely connected to the rest of the preparation of what you do, because these are tables where you gather things. Let's just start with looking at the first part of the implementation, quality and efficiency of the implementation, as it is officially called. And if I look at an old proposal, as I always do, this is not a winning one, but it still points out how to approach this. So what you would always start with in the 3.1 work planning and resources, started with a text. A text, or at least that's what I've been doing, a text where you shortly describe the interaction between the work packages. So in the template, if you find the Horizon Europe Pillar 2 generic template, you'll find that they start out within 3.1 with a brief presentation of the overall structure of the work plan. And this is the text that I'm talking about here. So if I look at the proposal I have here, you have 10 lines. I would recommend to keep it like that in that area, because it's not, you are short on pages. Here you simply just have to say this project is structured in XYZ amounts of VPs, they are interconnected, and it's executed over XYZ months with a total of XYZ numbers of deliverables and XYZ numbers of milestones. They are interconnected, blah, blah, blah. Then you start it's actually just one line. So you have in work package 1, we are dealing with input from the industry. With work package 2, we are dealing with the processing. In work package 3, we have the final application and tests products in work package 4. So it's extremely simple description where you sum up in 10 lines the work plan of the project. And then we move on to right next. You will have the overview, visual overview, what is called the paired diagram. So as mentioned, it's an overview of your work package flow. So here you would take the overview that you've been working with in the group, in the consortium, as you've been moving on. And simplifying it, maybe it might be quite extended. You will try to don't make it too large. Here it's what I'm looking at here is a quite small figure. It can be rectangular, or it can be rectangular. Or it's most important here is that it doesn't feel too much, that you still have a simple overview. So what you would have the work package number and the title of it in each of its boxes and so on, and the flow with arrows between them, how they fit together. And you can, well, for the layout, as mentioned also in earlier episodes, it's important that the layout has a certain consistency if you have the time. So here, if you followed a layout structure in your proposal, it's good and nice if you can, with the colors or the that you use, the colors and the layouts, graphical layout, if there's a correlation between that. From then on, it moves on to the Gantt chart. And it's sort of it's a huge Excel sheet. That's basically what it is. So you have on the horizontal line, you have the months of the project. So it's a timeline sheet. So you have on the horizontal line, you will have in each column of your Excel sheet the number of the month, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. And then on the vertical line, you will have your work packages, and sub rows, you will have the tasks, but main tasks. And so you will have, for instance, in this, what I'm looking at here, you have work package 1, and then you have work, that's one line, and then you have the 3 subtasks underneath that listed. And so that's what you do. You simply list them down on the vertical line. And what you put the work package, the number, the task number, and the description of the work package. And sometimes they can be pretty long, these descriptions. And this Gantt chart is extensive, but the problem is you need to fit it into a page. So often you need to, what I have often done is I have made the Excel sheet into a photo of the picture file, and so I can scale it down as a photo, because it's simply not, there's not space enough in a Word documents page to have it there if you don't do it like this. No. But that's what you need to do. You fill them in work package by work package, and under there the tasks, number of tasks that you have under each work package. Then the next row you will have is who is the VP lead. That's at least what I've been doing. And with the acronym of who's been the lead, and also under each task who is the lead on the task. And now comes the main function of the table. So you have here, so you have to imagine you have the horizontal line with the months on top, and then you have the vertical on the far left. You have the work packages and the tasks, and then each task you mark out in a color which months it will be performed. So this you do with, for instance, what I'm looking at is a red color for the first work package, the 3 tasks there, that's a red color. And for the next work package, I have a different color, it's green. To make an overview, some people, I've also seen where they just used gray or light gray for all of them. But when you do it with colors, you distinguish. And the evaluator and whoever is looking at it, it makes it much more easy to, in a complex table like this, as you can imagine it is, it makes it much easier for an overview to see what's the relationship between them. And I think that's basically it about the Gantt chart. It's the biggest issue with the Gantt chart is that you won't have the information until very late. So filling in, so what is, you can at an early stage, fairly early stage, starts to fill in the vertical part with the work packages and the tasks when that starts to crystallize. But the duration of the work and what months, from months to months, that needs to be marked out in the rows, that's related to the work that you do in the work groups and the work package description and understanding in between the partners, when does what finish when, and so on and so forth. So that's it's a good tip. I don't know, the most important thing is to do it at an early stage, set up the table, because I have myself experienced 1 or twice that I did it too late. So it was extremely stressful to sit with such making the setup when you're busy with all kinds of other things. So I would recommend to try to, when you want to free your brain from more heavier content stuff, you can sit and do this kind of formatting in Excel, finding out what the best way looks like, what the format that you colors and so on, and filling in the copy pasting the tasks into the table and so on, the task titles and so on. Yeah, that would be the main advice for that, because when you on the final phase where you will have everything ready to fill in, it's actually quite important that the only thing you need to do is to fill in, find out the months and fill in these colors, because it's you'll be busy at that point of time. So moving on to now start the tables to come. So first you will have the list of work packages. So the Commission wants to have a table where you list the work packages, the numbers of them, and where you have the main factual headlines, so to say, of the work packages. And this table you won't be able to make before the very end also, because this is connected to the budget. So here you will have to, on the horizontal line, you will have work package number, first one, work package title. Then you have the lead partner number. All partners have a number. And then you will have the lead partner acronym. And then you will have the person months, that the total number of person months that all partners total, that the project together is putting into allocating to each work package. And you can imagine that that's something you can only do when you did the budget. So this is something that is related to making the budget of your proposal, which I will get back to in an episode quite soon, where everybody has filled in how many man months, how many resources will each partner allocate. And then you, of course, aggregate them and you will fill them in here. But this you can only know when the full budget table is filled in. And these things also often change because of budget problems. They might have given too high a number for their budget in altogether. So you have to reduce it. So you have to go back here also and change the month. So this is a table I recommend that you do not finish before. You can simply not finish it before the budget is done in the end. Other elements you need here on the horizontal line, you have the start month of the work package and you have the end month of it. So that's quite simple. That is something that you can. Well, you cannot really do this before the end. But what you can do, of course, is you can fill the work package titles, the numbers, and so on in, and the partners. But these elements with the months and so on, you can only do in the end. That's that. Then we have then we come to the work package descriptions. That's the whole episode that me and Georg we did. So let's just move down here to the. Oh, let me see. Here it is. List of deliverables. So as you heard, because I'm not writing proposals anymore, because I'm not in the business anymore, there was a discrepancy between what you had to do before and what you have to do now. So before you had also to fill in the deliverables under the work package descriptions. You don't have to do that anymore. Now you can put the deliverables, gather them in one single table. So deliverables, we have went through what that is in the other episode, but it's basically something you can pick up in the hand, so to say. Data report or final reports or a plan, data management plan. Now I'm just looking at what we have, or plan for communication and so on. So they are tangible, concrete results of the work you do in the work packages, and each work package will have deliverables. So the table you have here, you have so again, if you look at the top, the horizontal line of the data they want. So they want the deliverable number, which you would label D, capital D, and then 1.1, D 1.2, D 2.1, D 2.2, and so on and so forth. D naturally for deliverable. And then next column is the deliverable name itself. Report on this or that, or this and this process, or this. And then the next one is the work package that it is connected to. And then you have the lead partner related to the specific deliverable. And then you have the type of deliverable. And here I have to remind myself looking into the template. So So here you have the different types you have of deliverables. They are documents, demonstrators and pilots, they're websites, data sets and data management and so on. These things you have, these categories you have in the template, and they have a code for each of them, and this code you need to fill into the table in this column type of dissemination. So look through them before the last week so you know what it is. Next column on the horizontal line in this table is the dissemination level, and that is in the template again. You have under the table template in on the next next column in this table is the dissemination level here in the list of deliverables. And again, in the commissions template, you have the keys in a box under the draft template that they put for you there. So again, dissemination level. Here they refer to if they are public and fully open. They refer to if they're sensitive, and then you have different classified levels in relation to some restrictions, confidentialities, and secret and so on. There you have referral to some commission decisions in this respect for these. So here you will have to put the codes in the table, and I have only been working with proposals that are working with the public PU or with the sensitive SEN. The others I have not been working with, but some of you will work with these, and then you will need to dig into that commission decision that is referred to understand what level they are. Final part of the final column in the deliverable list of deliverables table, that's a delivery date. So when will you, which month of the month number of the duration of the project will this be finalized? And pay attention to them, because you are responsible towards the commission in relation to this month. So this month that you put here defines when you will send this towards the project officer when you implement the project. So that's quite important, because these data, those are written into the contract with the commission for the money you get. So this is your responsibility as a consortium, and if things go bad enough, the commission, they can start to withdraw money back simply from the funding you get. So these you should pay attention to, obviously. Yeah, I think that's more or less the list of deliverables. Then we have the next table is the list of milestones. And milestones, we also talked a little bit about that, me and Georg, but they are steps on the way, so to say. Important steps on the way towards on the duration under each work package. And they can be, for instance, the kickoff meeting is a classic. It's always there. So in the table, you will have on the horizontal top, you will have milestone. You will to number, so that will be MS1, MS2, MS3. They are not divided into work packages. These are just the milestones number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no matter which work package they are in. Then you have the milestone name, and then you have the work package that they refer to, where they are in, under which work package they are carried out. Then you have the due date in the next column. So just like with the deliverables, you will have a date, and they are less strict in relation to this one, as far as I remember. These are things that are more flexible, can be flexible, because some of them are affected by things that you're not always in control of in the project. So these are things that can be moved, but you have to have some indication which you put here. So that's that. And the final column, that's means of verification. And if we go back to the commissions template here, so you have the key that they have, the key box where you have the explanation, says that the means of verification. Here the commission says, show how you will confirm that the milestone has been attained. Refer to indicators if appropriate. For instance, a laboratory prototype that is up and running, software released and validated by user group, field survey complete, and data quality validated. So as you can see here, the means of verification is it runs, the kickoff meeting was disseminated. What did we put here, for instance? Under the kickoff meeting, physical meeting, then we had some organisms that had to be dealt with. There's a report to consortium. Yeah, so it's protocols accepted, final reports on trials. Yeah, so it's simply say this is up and running. It went well. We move on. Yeah, that's the list of milestones. It's maybe, or just shortly going back to deliverables. They have actually, the commission has sort of narrowed in how many deliverables you should have in total. And to be honest, I don't remember the exact number, but what they are getting a little tired. We talked about it also, me and Georg. What they're tired of is very long tables of deliverables, because that's not the point. It's the same with milestones. In this project, in this proposal, I can see we had 10 milestones, and I've even seen lists of 5 or 6 or something. Like, keep it brief. Don't think up all kinds of milestones that you think could be relevant. They should cut it into the bone, so to say. This table, just as with many other tables here in the implementation, it's difficult to finalize these things before the last 2 weeks. For myself, it's the milestone table. I've even had finishing milestone tables on the day of submission. It's because, to tell the truth, actually, where I've been in the consortia I've been in, it's not something that is it's not very high on the top of mind, so to say. It's the milestones, and then you have to pull them out of people, because you cannot just put nothing. You can't have an empty table or not have it there. So you need to have, because there are always milestones. There are always steps toward a process which is the point for the table. You have each research and innovation process has markers or flags where it's okay, and then we reach so far. That has now been done. Now we can move towards the end of the process. But everybody focuses on deliverables, on description of work packages. So it can be a tricky table to make. I have struggled myself to make it a meaningful table sometimes. And unfortunately, evaluators, they see right through these things. But if it's a table that I have ever received critique on in the evaluation summary report, I don't think so, actually. It's more the deliverables that they focus on, if it is. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. So try to be reflected about it before the last 3 days before submission, to at least get some sort of solidity in what you put in there. So next table we are looking at, it's the critical risks of implementation. And here you have, in the commissions table, you have 3 columns. You have description of risk, then you have the work packages involved, and then you have the proposed risk mitigation measures. And I will get back to a second to that. But I can see the table that I'm looking at from the proposal I did. I had made a division here with given each risk a number first column, and then the next column there was a description of the risk, what the commission here is proposing as the first. So the description of the risk, a descriptive, in 10 words or something like this in that label. And then so if we just take the first column first, the description of the risk, here the commission, they want also to indicate the level of likelihood and the severity. So first you dig into, you describe what the risk is. And here in the commission's template, the explanations, they say the critical risk is a plausible event or issue that could have a high adverse impact on the ability of the project to achieve its objectives. Or in other words, it can be any part of the project, both in the innovation process, research process, implementation process, whatever, anything in whatever you are doing to achieve your goals of the project that can sidetrack your project in to less or smaller degree. So you have to together with the partners make that list or define it, and you will come out with them all often when you sit and do your discussions about how you will do the actual tasks in the content work. You will also discuss the what can happen of risks. So you will need to list them and gather them, and this will happen throughout the project actually slowly, but you will have to intensify this collection of risks towards the last 2 weeks, 10 days to make sure that you have them, because they should be there, and it shouldn't be too extensive, the list, but you should have a list that indicates that you know that there are risks, because any innovation and research process has risks. So you have to make a list that is mirroring that fact. So if we just take so for this first column you describe it, and then also in this same column you need to, in brackets, indicate afterwards two things: the likelihood to the level of likelihood to occur, and the level of severity. And the level of likelihood to occur, obviously, that is, you have a risk you describe and say, how likely is it that this will happen? Is it low, medium, and high? And be honest. The commission, the evaluators see right through if you try to put everything at low. So you have to be honest about this, and you will be if you know your stuff. So be honest if it's low, medium, and high, because you will get a chance in the mitigation, risk mitigation measures on this to water it out, so to say if this happens we will do this. So don't worry, you put what the likelihood is, the level. And then you have the second element, that's the level of severity, also low, medium, and high. And here what this means is the relative seriousness of the risk and the significance of its effect. So of course here this is related to it might, so you put a risk, and then it might not have a very big effect to sidetrack the full project. It might be a little corner where I said this can happen and it will be annoying, we'll have to find another way if this happens to find these data or whatever. And then you will have larger risks that might be at the core of your technology idea, your proposed idea to the commission. So that would be at the high risk, high severity, and so to say the seriousness if these things happen. And here again, be honest. The more honest you are, the more you show that you know what you're dealing with. So that's that. Next column, that's the work packages involved. So there might be more in relation to the risks. That's that. And then the final column, that is the proposed risk mitigation measures. And obviously, this is where you explain what you, as a consortium, will do if the risk happens. So you will put minimum one indication, but you might even have 2 or 3 things that you can point at and say, if this happens, we can do this, or we might be able to do this, or we will do this and this. Important table. This is an important table because this really is indicating how well you know what you are dealing with, and to give the commission a calm, and the evaluators a calm stomach about that you know your stuff and you know how to deal with it if and when it goes off the rail and you need to get it back on track. Yeah. Then we are moving into the next table. That's on summary of staff effort. And I just need to get back to my proposal here. The summary of staff effort, that's basically your budget, but it's budget in man-month, with man-month indications and not euros. So here, this table, you have on the horizontal top of the table, you have the rows, you have the columns of work package, so work package 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the total PM. And then you have the partners in the vertical. So you have each partner line downwards, all the way down to the bottom, of course, so how many partners you are. And then you will have, for each partner, you will have to put the man-month number that they have allocated for each work package in their row. So this is a tricky table. This table takes long to do, and you cannot do it before you have the final budget. So again, this is one of the tables that you will be struggling, more or less, but you will, towards the end. This is the last week, 10 days work. And again, I have been doing many stressful proposals, so this is also a table that I indeed have been sitting and doing to the very end. And one of the reasons that is that often with projects, proposals, you will have fights over the budget. We will get to that when we reach to the budget episodes. But and when you have struggles over budget, if you have to deduct the budget, then you get the table in and you have the budget ready, but then wait a minute, we have to deduct. So you need to make a reduction exercise, and then of course it affects all the not all the man months, but lots of the man months indicated first, then you have to go back. So this table, to tell the truth, it is a waste of time to do anything with this before the final budget is ready. Really, it is. Some people, they do it earlier, but it doesn't make any sense. This you will waste time. I predict that you'll waste time if you try to do it 2 weeks before. You need to wait until everybody has agreed on the final budget, because then you know exactly what man-month efforts they have put. What you can do is that you can pre-fill in the work package numbers and the partners. That's simply what you can do with the preparation earlier. But then that's pretty much the preparation you can do until the end. What you will find is, if you work with private consultancy companies on this, many of them, they have very detailed Excel tables. And that is speaking with each other, so to say. So you will have the individual budgets from the partners put into tables, and then they fill these things automatically into these kind of tables. I know, because I've been working for one, and we had these kind of very complicated Excel tables that did all this kind of work automatically. So that's if you have to do it by hand, which I have also tried without this kind of Excel sheets. That's complicated, but you can do it. But it's definitely, if you work with consultants, or if you work for one, of course, you will. Many of you might already have these kind of tools. Now we're moving on to the subcontracting cost. And subcontracting cost, the commission, they are obliging each partner to indicate the level of subcontracting they have that each partner is paying for any service subcontracting. Subcontracting, we haven't been through the budget yet, so it's a little. Some of these things are related to budget that has not been explained. But subcontracting, that's if you, in the project, you might have some things or activities that is not core innovation work, so to say, critical for you. So you don't need the partner in the project that can deliver flyers. Sometimes also website is part of this, or what is if you need a standard, if you're doing something with steel, for instance, you need steel to do something with the technological process. If you need to buy steel is not, that's not critical for the innovation process, but you still need it for the project. So you need to be able to buy it. So that's subcontracting. So here you will have for each partner, and that's what you need to understand when you do this. You cannot make one long table. You need to make the table 3.1G here in the template. Subcontracting cost. You have. It's a very small table. Looks like a small table in the template, and it's like this. So you have the participant number and short name. You put. And now I'm just going back to so you have how we did it here. So each each partner that had subcontracted costs had their own table. So they would have, there was the partner number and the acronym we put here on the top row from left to right, and then the next column would be the costs, and the next would be the description of the tasks and the justification. So you would have then in the next row the costs, and so it depends how many you have. If you have one, then it's just one post there, and here, for instance, I'm looking at a post of 30,000 euros in subcontracting. And then you, in the next column, you describe what they are for. It can be anything from, again, paper, website, flyers, whatever. So you describe what it is and why it is needed, and just very short. Some partners can have more. Here, for instance, I'm looking at a partner that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different subcontract costs. You have to put them all. There's no way around it. But this is a fairly simple table. This is something that you can collect at an earlier stage than in the end, because often they will know when they have these costs. So a good idea is to try not to be surprised in the end by it, but to try at least to put a flag in your calendar that you need to check with the partners a month before if they already know subcontracting costs. So you can start to fill these in, because the timely thing here is resource time consuming, is that you need to make one for each of them, and you need to make the description, and you need to get that from the partner, the description of it and the justification. And you will end up with helping them with some of the descriptions probably. Next table is purchase costs items, and that's travel and subsistence, equipment and other goods, works and services. And here you will have, these are related to your budget, where you travel, for instance, travel costs. So I'm just going to read here. So it is these, so what you have to fill in here, those are purchase costs, and then they put here, for instance, the sum of the cost for the travel and subsistence, equipment and other goods, works and services. If that sum of those cost groups altogether, travel, subsistence, equipment, and other goods, works, and services, if they exceed 15% of the personal costs for that partner, so you need to look at the total amount, what they are claiming in euros, each partner, and then if these cost categories, again, we will get back to this in the budget episodes, but these cost categories, if they altogether are exceeding 15% of the total budget of that partner, then you will have to put them here and justify them. And if I just have a look here, it's often if you have expensive equipment that some partners have to buy, or other goods, works and services, you might have some, there might be analytical elements that are very expensive, or lab costs that are very expensive, and then you might run into this. If you also have the travel costs included here, then you will also have to justify them. But the tables are, so you have the partner number, you have the cost, and then you have the justification. So they look like a little bit like the subcontracting cost tables. So you list, so if you have equipment, you put equipment. If you have other goods and services, and if you have travel expensive, then you also put that, and then you have the total. And then the final row here is called the remaining purchase cost. So the costs above 15%. So you will have to put in figures in euros, how much in euros, how many euros above 15% represents, so to say. So the level above the 15%, how much euros does that represent? So you need to put that here also. So there's you need to sit with the calculator to get that figure. So just to explain it again, so you have, they want to, these cost categories, if they are above 15%, then you need to put them here. You need to justify them here in these tables. And then on top of that, you need to show the commission how much above 15% what that value is above 15%, and then you need to put them here. So we are slowly moving towards the end. Then you have other cost categories. So here they, in this table, other cost categories, they are referring to, as an example, internally invoice goods and services. And that's I think that they are defining it here as goods and services which are provided by the beneficiary directly to the action, and which the beneficiary value of in the basis of its usual cost account. It means that if you're invoicing the consortium for something that you produce as a company, for instance, that they need to use in connection with the project. I will get back to this in the budget episode, I promise, to clarify this, to make sure I didn't say anything wrong here. That's that table again, and that's you simply, yes, again, it looks like the other tables above. You have the service, what it is you are having, and then you have the cost itself, and then you justify it. And then finally you have the in-kind contributions. And in-kind, that means sometimes you will have industry, particularly, that is saying we would actually like to hand over a value to the consortium that we don't get a funding rate for. So often you will see in-kind contributions can be production facilities for industry, where they say before this project, we already invested, or we will invest during the project. It's planned that we will invest in a production site, or we will invest in some means of production, so to say, a machine or something like this, and that will be under our own commercial budget that we will put this in, and then you can put it into an in-kind contribution to the project, the value of that. You have other elements, so you have here. You have seconded personnel, travel and subsistence, equipment, other goods and services, and internally invoiced goods and services. So these elements, cost categories, are things that we will talk about in the budget episode. But basically, it means, again, in-kind contribution, that you hand in something to the project where you're not asking for a funding rate. So what they define it here, I can see in the table, non-financial resources made available free of charge by third parties. So that's in other words. So we are moving towards the end. So that's now we've been going through the tables, we've been going through the work package descriptions and the intro and so on. The final part of the implementation section, that's the 3.2, capacity of participants and consortium as a whole. And here, what you're meant to do here is you're meant to describe poetry, so to say, how everything comes together. So the capacity of the participants, why they have been chosen, and what they can do in relation to what you want to do. And then you zoom out in a text bit on the consortium as a whole, why everything is so well composed, so to say, in the partner profiling, so to say, of the whole consortium. This part of the proposal, nobody deals with this until it's the stepson or stepdaughter of all proposals. Really, I have been. I'm not as you should know by now, is because I've been saying it so many times. I'm not a proposal writer by capacity. I'm a facilitator, but this is the section that I have often been sitting and writing, because I've been having the knowledge of the partners and building up the profile of the consortium. So the proposal writers would ask, Niels, can you do this? And of course I could. So it's very short. I see the one that I'm looking at, it's half a page with everything, where you both go through capacity of the participants and the consortium as a whole. You can do it in many ways. Often you would start with an overall fly-in, say that the partners of has been selected considering their competences and expertise. So some would say it can very quickly turn into a blah blah. try to make it. That's also why you should make it short, because it's not. You just have to try to give it a little bit of weight by saying, move on after a short fly-in, saying, so you have, this is the coordinator. This guy or this lady has been coordinating experience, if they have that, to secure that everything is okay. That's why we chose them as a coordinator. And then you run through the consortium partners. And this is tricky, because how do you do that shortly? I often put them into categories: industrial partners, technology and innovation partners, so the research part, innovation management, for instance, as I can see in this one, and for dissemination and communication. So you try to group them. That's what I've been doing. Here, there's no table. I've been doing tables before sometimes, making a table myself, but often it's short and descriptive, where you group them and say you have these companies. As here you also have SMEs. These are the research partners, and put some words around that. I have sometimes made a short description of each partner. That's it depends also sometimes on the space you have. This is a section that you often can cut a little bit in the end if you are a shorter space, which you always are. So that's that. The toughest challenge? Well, for these things, the toughest challenge is, as I have indicated a couple of times, that many of the things cannot be done before the very end. And that's, as a proposal writer, no matter university representative or NGO, innovation cluster representative or private consultant, proposal writer, everybody will have this challenge in the end, that you need to juggle with a lot of different figures. You need to juggle with getting everything in, and you need to juggle with making sure that everything is in the right places in these tables. And I haven't even here mentioned the budget part, which many of these things are correlating with. So that, I would say, this is indeed the toughest challenge, and it is one that has given me a lot of stress, and anxiety even, I would say, to be honest, that this is really something that, because these are the hard facts and you just need to have them right. You can adjust them in contract negotiations always, but of course it's not live and it's not, well, I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say that it's not life and death. You can adjust things. It's not like your project will fall, but you need to show a professional budget and professional these tables. You just need to do your best to have them right, because it signals professionalism and that you know what you're doing, that these things are right. So that's indeed, when you sit with the responsibility to get them in there and get them right, it is tough. That part of it. That's just how it is. Now, it's that. Did this alone myself, and it became a quite long episode, but it's like this, you cannot do this short. Thanks for listening to the end. Go to thegrant.eu. That's my website. That's where you have all my episodes. It's reaching around 30 episodes now. Recording this before I know exactly how many I will have when it's released, but that's I have 25 released as I speak, but there will be more when this is released. A lot of episodes now, timeline series. I'm moving towards the end slowly. It takes time to make this timeline series, but it starts to be substantial with that, for everybody to go in and find their generic episode where they exactly are struggling with something in their proposal process. And then I have all my interviews in different corners with consultants, with universities, with associations and so on. It's starting to become a solid structure in there, and it's just going to keep rising. Go in there, check it out, and please subscribe. I think I will soon make a campaign for people to subscribe to the podcast, because it is the way, I keep saying it is the way to grow a podcast most solidly. And if you have sympathy what I'm doing, please go and subscribe. It's important if you want to see this grow. Thanks for listening to the end, and I really hope that you are enjoying following this. Bye. The Grand. You have been listening to The Grand, the EU funding podcast.